As is often the case with our Seattle Philharmonic programs, this one started out with a desire to do one particular piece, and then came the game of deciding what should complement it, what would the rest of the program be. In this case, when I was about 13 or 14 years old, the great Hungarian-born composer, conductor Antal Dorati came to Los Angeles, where I was raised, and guest conducted the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And the last half of the concert was his own symphony. At that time, it was just called Symphony. It was since followed by a Symphony No. 2. And I fell madly in love with it and got a score not long thereafter, and have been waiting, lo, these many years to conduct it, and finally gave myself the chance. And in trying to decide what would comprise the rest of the concert, I decided that since Dorati is primarily known as a conductor, a very great one, that I would do music by 3 other musicians who were equally adept at composing and conducting. Mozart, legendarily a great conductor; Mendelssohn, about whom there exists much evidence in writing about his prowess on the podium; and Leonard Bernstein, about whom I need say nothing. And so the whole concert is going to be the Overture to West Side Story, the Clarinet Concerto by Mozart, the Hebrides Overture, also known as Fingal's Cave by Mendelssohn, and then concluding with this magnificent First Symphony by Antal Dorati. I wanted to share one little tidbit about West Side Story that may have been a subliminal act upon the part of its composer. When musicians talk about West Side Story, the technical thing that usually comes out of those discussions is, oh, it makes copious use of the tritone. Very unstable musical interval, but Maria, and the tritone is all over West Side Story. But there's one marvelous little bit in my favorite song in the show, Somewhere, where Bernstein composes this achingly beautiful theme that begins. And it begins with that long stretch of an ascending minor seventh. Now, Bernstein in his music was constantly paying homage to Beethoven, and indeed in West Side Story, in the fugue that accompanies the dancing after the song Cool, he adapts the tune of Beethoven's Grosse Fuge, the standalone movement for string quartet, and that fugue theme is. So that's straight from Beethoven. And in Somewhere, a lot of people have commented on the similarity between the opening of Somewhere and this little bit from Beethoven's Emperor Concerto. Etc. Well, it may be, and probably is. And there's another bit from the standard repertoire, and again, I wonder if this is an accident or if it was Bernstein having it both ways. In Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet, the very last time that Tchaikovsky quotes his own exquisite love theme, the harmonization and bass line to it, when added, make it come out something like this. Now, do you hear what's happening in the bass? There's a place for us. Well, it doesn't quite add up, but those first 3 notes certainly do. So was it a double homage? Very likely. I wanted to take a moment to clue you into a few of the juicy musical tidbits from the Dorati. His music certainly betrays the fact that he studied with Zoltán Kodály, that he was a friend and colleague of Bela Bartok, and Dorati was very much his own man. There certainly is a Dorati sound, which I have found the more I study more and more of his pieces. His way with material is fascinating. Certainly it's the work of a very tightly organized musical mind, and at the same time, his flights of fancy are very visceral and emotional. Even something like the beginning, which sounds like a tempest breaking loose, is actually a very simple musical idea with which Dorati has his own unique way. The symphony opens up like this. Now, it sounds like you're being yanked about in many different directions at once. It's all these descending sevenths. I mean, that's quite a trip. What it actually is a very simple chromatic scale. So it's ascending and descending at the same time. Somewhere in your brain you're thinking, and yet he yanks you the other way by making it come out like. There are a couple of other musical germs that permeate this symphony. One is a four-note idea that is rather akin to Bach, that is to say B-A-C-H, the way that Johann Sebastian Bach would put his own name into a piece. B, or as the Germans call B-flat, B, A, C, H, the way that the Germans identify B natural as H, B-A-C-H, or the way that Dmitri Shostakovich would sign his name to a piece, D-S-C-H, D for Dmitri, and then the first three letters of his name in the German transliteration, S, the way that they refer to E-flat, C, H. Well, there's a little four-note motif in the Dorati Symphony. I haven't been able to ascertain if it stands for anything, but it's this. And he sometimes will use it in its inverted fashion, which is to say he literally does a mirror image of those four notes. And the original version of it becomes the basis for the main theme of the finale. And he does all sorts of throwing it through every hoop you can imagine, but the most satisfying moment comes at the very end, where for the only time in the symphony, he takes the four-note theme and its inversion, and he has them come together for one last very imperious gesture. Now, is this a great way to end a symphony or not? And with that, our concert comes to a dramatic close.